Racism in music industry. Racism in music industry refers to all forms of racism experienced in the music industry, such as in recording studios, live shows, and other aspects of the business. This includes racism faced by African Americans and ethnic minorities within the industry. Racism in music refers to a range of topics and issues and can be found at many different points in the history of music. Racism has had a long-lasting impact on the work and careers of many African Americans in all genres of music, as well as other ethnic minority groups. The efforts of these musicians have been met with varying degrees of racism and prejudice, including outright illegal activity that aim to prevent them from performing their works. Racism in music industry in developing countries. Music is a wide culture with different functions and development in different countries. The purpose of this project is to critically examine the impact of racism in the music industry of developing countries and proffer recommendations on how to solve the problem. Racism in music in developing countries is a significant issue that has gained international attention. Many studies have defined and quantified the impact of racism on health, education, and employment for minority ethnic groups globally. Racism has been a serious problem issue in music throughout the years. This playlist examines the topic of racism as it relates to music and online streaming in developing countries around the world. Racism in music industry in developed countries. Racism in music is an issue that can occur in any genre of music. Music is defined by Webster's dictionary as the art of arranging sounds in time so as to produce a continuous, unified, and evocative composition, as through melody, harmony, rhythm, and timbre. But popular music culture has been described as a multiracial space where people from different races interact freely on many levels. Racism is associated with the predominance of a particular ethnic group in the development of music genres in developed countries. Racism in music in developed countries is the discrimination or prejudice but refers race-based prejudice expressed through unfair representation of one racial or ethnic group. While particularly associated with the period after World War II, racism in music in developed countries occurred before and after this date. Racism has shaped to a large extent both the history and evolution of music around the globe. Racism by singers. The singers have probably never faced the slightest form of racism in their lives, yet they begin to sing with a racial hatred that comes out of nowhere. One of the important basic facts about racism that should be taught to children is that people of all ethnicity and cultures can be racists. When racism is committed by non-whites, the media pays little attention or never reports it at all. In the case of white-on-black racism that's been committed by white singers, celebrities, actors, and production companies, such as in the cases of Paula Deen and Duck Dynasty, there's a little more attention paid to issues such as use of racial slurs. Racism is widespread in the music industry. White rappers have a tendency towards this type of behavior. Among them are Eminem, the controversial rapper and actor best known for playing misanthropic, sociopaths characters. Eminem has been quoted as saying, "I'm not white, I'm a little bit gray." In 2002, he made headlines after being photographed wearing a controversial t-shirt bearing the slogan "White Power." Racism in music industry. Racism by music industry content. Controversial album cover art like this causes a big stir in music, and unfortunately much of this uproar is directed towards rap music. Despite the fact that most people knows it's wrong to be racist, many modern hip-hop artists still use racist lyrics and images as a way to make their songs more controversial and appealing in the media. We all need to do our part to help stop racism from making its way back into popular culture. Music industry was built on racism. The music industry was built on racism. However, the racism is not always overt but rather institutional, in the institutions and corporations that have profited from slavery and continue to profit from the exploitation of Black people. The summer of 2020 has seen an outpouring of support for Black Lives Matter, but as we work towards a more equal future, it's important to remember that the foundation of the fashion and music industry was built on racism, allowing certain people's voices to be heard while others were silenced. Michael Rapino, the CEO of Live Nation, told Bloomberg TV in February 2019 that he thinks hip-hop is the future of the music business. If this is true, then it should be noted that racism helped build the foundation of the music business in America. The fact is that blacks were not always allowed to play instruments or sing on stage with whites. A great example was in 1964 when Barbra Streisand wanted to perform at a hotel, but organizers told her she could not perform because she refused to stay at a different hotel than Harry Belafonte. Those are just one example of many, and it proves that racism is still very much alive today and still has a negative impact on African Americans.